Government workers are quitting left, right, and center. And it's not every agency because we have some good agencies with no retention problems. But we definitely have a couple that are struggling. First, we have to talk about FEMA. It's 35% short on its staffing needs, meaning it's short 6,000 employees. Burnout's one issue. When you have 65% of the organization trying to do 100% of all the duties and tasks, they're gonna be burned out. Another thing, they have to travel a lot of times when it comes to these disasters. Before, the disasters were only about 20, 30, or 40 a year. But in 2020, there were over 100 disasters they had to respond to. They're leaving home, getting into their car, getting on the plane, traveling, leaving their family members, and they're dealing with people that are struggling and trying to recover from these disasters. The major event that caused all of this attrition was the pandemic, and 2021 wasn't that better. We went from 104 disasters in 2020 to 58 disasters in 2021, still highly above average. The next thing is the actual hiring process that FEMA is using in order to get new employees into its agency. The time to hire, that's all out of whack. There's a metric that people use in order to determine what is the average time to hire. And most people understand this, most people get the issue. If you apply to a federal government job, you know it can take a long time. I actually had an interview with FEMA a few years back. It takes, 4 to 6 weeks in order to find out that you have an interview. After that, it can take another 4 to 6 weeks before there's a tentative job offer, and then you have the background check. So you're talking about months, 3-4 months before you can even get to the point where there's a background check. People are frustrated with that. You know what else happens in 3 or 4 months? Other job offers happen. So you might have the best qualified candidate and you think you're going to onboard that person, but you take too long, you drag your heels, and they go ahead and they go to another agency or they go to another company. So how do you fix that? It starts with human resources. You need to make sure human resources is staffed sufficiently and that the individuals that you have there, they're moving with a sense of purpose, they're prioritizing and trying to get things done. You need proactive people in the human resource department. Not just that, when it comes to the security teams that are actually doing the background check, a lot of times they're overwhelmed. That's why they're moving so slow. They need more resources in order to do those security checks. So GAO, if you don't know, the Government Accountability Office, they actually identified this. This was an issue with FEMA. They're like, hey, you have a problem here. So do you know how FEMA responded to this issue? This is basically what they did. Number one is they created bulk hiring events. Now, do you think that helps the situation? You hold this big hiring event, everybody comes, they put their suit on, they have their resume in their hand, they're walking around talking to people. How many hiring managers actually attend these fairs? You know, if you've been there, it's probably something like 5 or 10%. The majority of them are human resource professionals that are just simply redirecting you to usajobs.gov. They want you to apply there. Sometimes they'll take your resume, sometimes they won't. So how efficient and effective are these hiring fairs? In my opinion, they're not. There's better uses of time in order to increase the staffing of your agency besides holding all of these fairs. Next is they boosted its contractors in order to address the employee gap. That is not going to provide you a long-term solution. Sure, it's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid on the problem, but if your issue is attrition, if your issue is staffing, contractors is a temporary fix. After the contract expires, that person may or may not be there. You need to actually have a robust, full-time, permanent employee solution in order to move forward and be able to accomplish these objectives that these agencies want to accomplish. And FEMA's not alone. Far from it. When it comes to attrition and burnout and understaffed, we have to talk about the Social Security Administration. These individuals are experiencing burnout on record levels. A lot of people in the SSA, they deal with customer service. There's a lot of people that rely on Social Security that have questions about their payments, about their eligibility. So the backlog is insane. When you're talking about disability claims, the backlog is over 1 million. And when these people are calling up, they're getting the busy signal. They get frustrated, they hang up, they try to call again, they finally get somebody. Can you imagine what they're going through? Can you imagine the emotions they must be feeling? And What can only be described as a verbal attack comes through the phone, and that adds to the stress of the government employee. You probably can relate to this. How many times have you called somebody in order to get assistance? Maybe it was customer service, whatever problem you're dealing with, and you're on hold for up to an hour, 2 hours or more. People experience this when they call the airlines. And the airlines are a private company. So can you imagine if it's something as important as finding out what's the status of your Social Security claim? It's a big deal. Just last year, over 4,000 Social Security Administration employees, they quit. And right now, if you look at the employees that SSA currently has, it's at a record low. It's the lowest of any time in the past 10 years. A lot of these issues falls back on leadership. You have to hold senior leadership accountable for what's going on in that agency. Social Security Administration was not always like this. There was a time that they were highly ranked. They were in the top 3 or 4 agencies in the federal government. Now, the last 2 years, especially the last 12 months, they have plummeted in the rankings. Now, other agencies are also experiencing this issue. It's not just FEMA, it's not just SSA, but it's difficult to paint an organization, a federal agency holistically, if you take the holistic approach, right? Because there could be some major problems in that agency, but you could be in a good office, a good subdivision. Take USDA, for example. I know people that work at USDA in the Office of Information Technology that love their job. They have great work-life balance. They have great promotional growth. Then I know some people at the same agency, but they work for the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer. They are stressed. They are putting in overtime hours. So for them, it's a completely different type of culture. And it's common to have 2 offices or 2 sub-agencies that have different cultures within that same larger agency. So anytime that you're hearing something or you're reading something negative about a federal agency, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Because there are some good leaders out there. There are some good supervisors to work for, and you can still have a rewarding career in some of these agencies. People frequently email me or message me and they ask, hey, I have a job offer from this agency. Do you think it's a good idea? I heard they were pretty low on the rankings list. And my answer comes back down to, who is your supervisor going to be? When you interview, you have an opportunity to meet your supervisor a lot of times. Look at that individual and think, could I work for him or her for the next 1 to 3 years? Is that something that I'm willing to take a risk and do? If you're not willing to work with them, don't accept the job offer, especially if you have other job offers. You have to go where you feel like you're the best fit. Okay, so it's not all bad news. There are some agencies that ranked very high, both large, medium, and small. If you want to know what are the best federal agencies to work for, I want you to watch this video next. If you would like to see more videos like this, please click like and smash that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.